I rewrote the title, Is it a hidden gem? You know, with the European market being valued 160 billion for Medtech and 65 or something for health tech, I'm not so sure it's hidden anymore. But we'll sort it out. The thing is that 95% of all the medtech companies in Europe are SMEs or micro companies, and as they are here in Medical Village and Medical Valley. So that's one of the reasons that I think we should start with investments questions. But before that, I'll let my illustrious panel do a short presentation. We start with Hanna.
Thank you so much, Carl, and hi, everyone. So my name is Hanna Sjöström. I'm CEO of Neola Medical, a listed company on Nasdaq First North, doing medical device for continuous lung monitoring with primary market, the US. But I'm also here as chairman of the board for the Medtech task force at Sweden's largest industry organization, SwedenBio. So working very closely, for example, with the government, making sure that our companies are heard when new implementation of MDR, for example, are done.
Thank you. Magnus Holm. I have different roles. I work as an entrepreneur. I work as a board member and chairman of the board, including Navari Surgical, that presented earlier today. I also help the EU Commission to select companies for their EAC Transition, EAC Accelerator program. And then what's on my tag here is I also link to a venture capital firm called Peppermint Venture Partners that invest in early stage medtech and lab tech technologies.
Hi everyone, I'm Fiona. I'm a European patent attorney and partner at Clarkson. We're a Europe-wide IP firm with offices here in Lund. My speciality is working with companies to make them IP due diligence ready and helping them raise money, which I think a lot of you are here interested in doing today. And I'm particularly suited to that, I think, because I work a lot with investors doing their IP due diligence. I have a life sciences background, and in the medtech sphere, everything from catheters through AI diagnostics through to true digital therapeutics. Thanks.
So I'm Karin Leire. I am investment director at Segulah Medical Acceleration. We are a Swedish investment company that specifically invests in medtech. So no pharmaceuticals coming my way. It's an interesting day that we're facing. So I'll hand over to you, Carl.
Okay, so you realize that this is the best panel today, right? We have investors, we have a real-world CEO, and IP experts. But as I said, since many of the companies that come here and many of the medtech are small, I thought we should start with what criteria you are looking at when you do an investment. We already have some, I don't know if it was a disagreement, but we talked about medtech, health tech, digital therapeutics, digital companion, and so on and so forth. So if it becomes a bit confusing, it's my fault, because I try to define them all. But if we look at the medtech, the sort of more traditional, and we can compare it to health tech, what are the criteria you look at? I mean, there are IP, regulatory, clinical evidence, and so on and so forth. And yeah, Karin, you start.
I can start. At Segulah Medical, we're agnostic, and we also invest rather late. So if we talk about a medical device company, that would be when you have your CE mark in place and your 510K, as an example. I think to pinpoint what we look at, one critical point is to know which specific journey that's your company's journey. Because I think that's what's specific between medtech and pharmaceuticals, that there is no one route. There is one route for you. And that route will actually also branch out into different exit scenarios in the future, which is the beauty of medtech. So knowing that journey is one important criteria.
Okay, so you mentioned already the regulatory landscape. What about IP and clinical validation?
So the clinical validation is extremely important since we operate within an evidence-based healthcare system. So if you are to be truly successful with your solution, you need to be able to prove it, and that is also tied to the fact that it's not always the evidence-driven individual that makes the financial decision if you are to introduce something, a new cost, essentially, into the healthcare system. But since everyone is raised in the evidence-based evaluation methodology that comes from pharmaceuticals, then you need to be able to prove it, even though you may come with a solution that is obvious, that it's better. Even the most obvious thing must be proven, and you really must work with your publication strategy so that you have a handful of publications to show to your investor.
Okay, and Magnus, Peppermint, do you have similar criteria, or are you a late stage or early stage? Or?
Now, we're actually a bit earlier stage. We mainly invest in medical devices. Could be digital health, but again, it could be defined in different ways. The way we define digital health, if it's a medical device, could be more digital than kind of mechanic. Then we might call it digital health, but it doesn't really matter. Now, so the criteria we look at is that there needs to be a tangible medical need. We always look very careful at that. That's number one we look at. A tangible medical need that can be translated into a, best case, a substantial market opportunity. So meaning that the volume is there is an interest to pay. So those are the criteria we look at first, and then we look at the technology, the solution they propose, which normally is not a main issue, because most technical issues can actually be overcome if you have the other things in place. Then, of course, we look at IP. Of course, it should be protectable. If you can't protect it, needs to be protected in one another way, either patents or it's a black box kind of thing with software or AI, or actually trained software, being AI, deep learning or machine learning. Then other things, we of course look at other things as well, but that includes also that the company should be in the process of acquiring clinical input. We actually love technologies. We actually most like technologies that actually are invented by a clinician, professor, scientist, clinician. And so there is then the tangible need is a kind of not warranted, but it's indicated. And then secondly, that the team in the company spoken to other clinicians. So it's not one person kind of testimony, but it's other coming from different physicians, in this case clinicians in different countries. Then the case is much, much stronger.
Can I ask?
Yeah, absolutely.
So in SwedenBio, we're currently working on guidelines for investor communication with medtech companies, because we've found that investors find it really hard to have a clear understanding of the key components of each medtech company's business model. And one of the things that we're really debating is whether or not reimbursement and the reimbursement strategy for EU and for the US needs to be in that communication. How do you feel about that?
Good question. I didn't cover the whole list because I tried to make it short. But yes, the reimbursement is I would say two things, two levels. If it's a good market size, maybe not super substantial, but it's a good market size, so it's worthwhile to look at, then the reimbursement should be in place. There should be a code that you can tap into. And there should be enough kind of space in that code, meaning money, that you can say you can add the cost, you can add one step in the procedure or something like that. Then you say that's a good one. Then you tick that box. If it's a super big area like heart failure that I work with, or atrial fibrillation, Do you know that the market is so big anyway, it's about, 20 million or 10 billion or 20 billion. Then you know that you can actually afford the time and the money to create the code. So those are the distinctions. But if it's more like a normal size, well, it's a very nice market. It's 500 million euros, then I would say, or less, then I would say it should be prerequisite that they should have a basket code that they can tap into, at least initially. Otherwise, that will take another 3, 4, 5 years before you have the first revenues.
Thank you so much. That's really insightful.
That was my question, Hanna.
Sorry for taking over, Carl.
But I'll tag along. You say you don't need a 510K. 510K is an FDA clearance or approval of some sort, some class 1, 2, 3. If you don't have some sort of FDA registration, then you don't get reimbursement. So how can you don't need a 510K, but you would like to see reimbursement? That doesn't really...
No, okay, so that's a good point, yeah. Now, of course, you need an FDA approval or a CE mark, yes, and reimbursement, yeah. So one is kind of prerequisite for the other, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But there are two different things, because the thing with an FDA approval today wasn't the case 5, 10 years ago. Today, it's very predictable.
Yeah.
The rules are clear, the rules are transparent. You can actually ask FDA, what are the rules, what are the criteria, and they will tell you up front, super clear. Yeah. And you will know from that answer if it's 6 months, 12 months, or longer process, but it's super predictable. Yeah. The CE mark, according to MDR, is less predictable, but hopefully in 2 years it will become more predictable. So you know the criteria. So I would say that's more a process than kind of a tick the box, but it's a process. You can fold it into your plan. It will take this time, cost so much, but it's predictable. Reimbursement is less predictable because you don't really know if it takes you 3 years. If it exists, it exists. You know that's predictable. If it doesn't exist, it could be never, could be the answer, worst case.
Comment from Karin.
Yeah. Just a comment on the regulatory clearance or approval versus a commercial success. So the being cleared from FDA, if we talk the US, or if you have your CE mark, it only proves to them what they have looked at is that the product is safe. Nothing about it being better than anything else in the market, or that you actually can earn a dime on it. And I think that makes for devices that makes it a kind of a hygiene tick box that you need to get in. So to your question, Hanna, on the reimbursement, it's important to as an investor, it's important to understand that the company understand what they have ahead. So it may be that there is a reimbursement code in place for that, but that could be negative because that could be for the technology that existed at the time that code came about. So there may be a code for $700, but your technique costs 70
twice,
much more, and then they don't take that into consideration. But you need to know what the journey ahead look like, because that's what you are evaluating when you are considering an investment into the company. What does the journey look like?
I mean, that's exactly my point, because I come across many times that the investors say we need a 510K. I mean, that's one of 10 steps. And you don't have that, so sorry. Come back later. But you are now aiming for a de novo 510K, which is the toughest, almost.
That is the toughest. So that's when the FDA has agreed that your technology is brand new, so completely novel technology. So pros and cons. I would say one of the pros when you have agreed with the FDA that this is your route, I find the FDA really interested in new technology that has the potential to really make the care more efficient, have better clinical outcomes. But then also you have the opportunity, if you also get a breakthrough device designation application, to get what's called a new technology payment. And if you get that, that's behind one of the successes behind bone support, for example, now really crushing it in the US in terms of margins. And it's because every time a doctor chooses their implant instead of a competitor, they get an added technology payment. So there are definitely ways in the reimbursement strategy and in your FDA strategy where you could also benefit from being a new technology, even though it is very challenging.
Time-consuming.
But someone's got to do it, right?
Yeah. So the reason we talk so much about this is that this distinguishes Medtech from pharma, for example. At least if you're a micro company, your product is to license. You know, most of the things you heard today will never hit the market by these companies. They have to, you know, give it away, or not give it away, but give it to Pfizer or something. But Medtech is different. So from an IP point of view, and I'm back to a little bit on health tech as well, digital things. How I mean, some of it is possible to protect, but some is not. So could you give us a distinction? Yeah,
it's probably not in 15 minutes or even 15 hours, but
you have 2 minutes.
It's 3. The path is, I used to do a lot of traditional life sciences investment, and it's relatively simple. It's a drug with a long development time and a product patent and maybe a few patents on the uses, but it's the same prescription. Whereas in health tech, digital therapeutics, diagnostics, there is no one size fits all. It's a combination of things. Now, I think digital therapeutics is a really interesting area because that's starting to look like pharma in terms of the patents that you can get, especially in the true, what I call a true combination product where you have perhaps a personalization of a dose, or Paindrainer, for example, a real pioneer in patenting truly a digital therapeutic. Yeah. So we're seeing the IP landscape becoming a lot more fixed. It's usually a combination of things. So whenever, sort of with my acting for investors hat on, what they want to know, what investors want to know from my point of view is that they understand that path ahead of them. What different aspects might they be able to protect? A combination of trade secrets and patents, or even early stage, knowing what's patentable. But to get back to the question you asked me, and the sort of when it comes to the question I'm asked all the time is, in software, what's patentable? If you have a tangible clinical benefit, anything with data, that's patentable. There's usually a way.
So that would be a user patent.
You can patent the software. You can patent the digital component, the software, as long as you have a tangible benefit.
But then the coding experts say that, yeah, that's fine. I'll just change a few of the lines, and then your patent is worthless.
No, that you can. The way that you can patent these apps, you can patent them by referring to the tangible outcome, by the clinical outcome. Okay. So actually, they're very powerful because, yes, the problem is you can't patent the actual code, nor would you want to give it away. That's the secret sauce.
Yeah.
So you can do it. You can be quite clever, and you can have a very powerful IP portfolio with some of these digital companies.
Okay. So from an investment point of view, how important is the IP in medtech or health tech? I mean, I know how important it is in pharma. It's crucial, obviously, but you still look at that, or yeah, Karin, you go
we
ahead.
Absolutely look at it for sure.
Yeah.
There are, of course, different landscapes in regards to patents, and when we look at companies of the character of life science tools, different type of kits, for example, to be used for research use, there are some areas where there are so many lawsuits going on at the time and that there are big companies that have a whole room of lawyers like this. That's of course something that affects us as investors as well. So then you, because even if even if the small company is right, you probably won't get it right in that situation. So that's a situation where we are extremely picky in that sense.
Magnus?
Yeah, the companies I come across or interfere with, they are most often earlier stage than you, Karin. Yeah. So I think it's kind of tapping into what you said, Fiona, that we look very carefully at the IP. It's not necessary that they have all the IP protection in place, but we do assess about whether it's patentable in one or another way. And then we can kind of be a little bit flexible. If they file it, that's fine, but we know it's in the works of being filed, or they have a clear plan too for how to file it and also how to protect it. And for example, with the EU Commission, when I work with them, they have report from EPO for each case, early case, and that's exactly what they do. See, is this patentable or not, and that's kind of a pretty important parameter, whether they should get funding or not.
Hanna, is that your patent strategy as well, to both patent the device and the application? And
Yes, definitely. So we are working with the patent strategy, I would say, divided in 3 different buckets. One is medical patents, so anything related to monitoring of lungs, and not only then our primary target group of preterms, but also then the possibility to scale to children and adults. Then we're looking at device-related patents, and here we are working on both things that can make it really hard for the competitors to have efficient measurements, for example, in intensive care. And then we're protecting a lot around both our software, but also importantly our disposables. And disposable is one part that you might think is too easy, but in order to get patents or design protection on the disposables, that's crucial, because most of the medical device companies, that's where we are earning our big bucks.
I see time is flying, but we were 5 minutes late, so I take the opportunity to do a few minutes after 5, okay? Another thing that is very important, and I, when we started one of our cancer companies, was to have partners. And why is that important? Obviously, somebody else likes your product and are ready to pay for it, and suddenly the valuation of the company skyrockets. How do you see that in Medtech and health tech, because of the different sort of pathways to the market? Would you value a company that already had a partner much better, much higher? Would it be more expensive for you or lower risk? I know money is not the issue, it's the risk.
But you mean a partner like in a strategic...
Yeah, co-development of Hanna's device from the beginning, who sort of, I mean, that's what you have in pharma, because you can you don't have the money as a small company to actually develop something.
I think we meet a lot of companies that have one tiny piece that they want to make a company out of. And we would love to see that they actually partnered up with their neighbors and made that into one company. But apart from that, it's very positive. Then you use your strengths wisely. So partnerships are good, and even better when you come further along. Hanna, you and I talked about that. If you have a strategy that your solution is to be part of an existing solution out there today, it's what we want to see as investors, that you have already gone down that path, and that you're piloting things together. They might come in as a strategic investor in the later stages. That's very positive. And to the question, just to connect back with the question about the 510K and the CE mark. I think it's when an investor tells you need to have your 510K in place. That is because they don't know what's surrounding it. So if you say no, I don't have my 510K, but I have I've signed a contract with X, and I'm doing my pivotal trial right now, and we're planning to do this and that if this and that falls out positively in the study, then that allows for the investor to enter sooner because they kind of checked something off in advance.
Okay. Yeah. What do you say that goes
No,
in?
I fully agree. I think two things. Partnership is very important for development, co-development, co-funding of development. That could be very important. It's secondly important, actually three things. Secondly important because that if you partner with somebody that are already in the market with some products might be complementary to yours, supplementary, complementary, that means that you will understand the market much better. And thirdly, once you want to go commercial, and I've done quite much commercial work, and really look at the adoption of your technology, I fully agree with what you say, Karin, it needs to fall into a context. It needs to fall into a treatment chain or a diagnostic chain of a disease. And if it doesn't, you will have a nightmare. It will take forever to get really any adoption. Yeah. And then the partnership is even more important. So either they can sell it for you or you can co-sell it together and it will fall into a context so the customer have a kind of a full solution in front of them.
Yeah. But I mean, that's not so different from pharma. I mean, but you see it much more in Medtech because some tech nerd develops something which is really, really nice, but nobody wants it. Nobody pays for it. And I remember I read, what's her name, Anne de Geest, something who coined health tech as a concept in the 80s. She said, the question is not if the product works, the question is who's going to pay for it. And if nobody wants to pay for it, but that's the same also if you come up with a super solution for some pharmaceutical indication, whatever. If there is no market pull, so. But I agree with you. I mean, it's.
Yeah, I also think that there's a lot of medtech solutions that have a solution for something that is expected in society, or not expected, that's the wrong word, accepted is the right word. For example, say snoring. Oh, my husband snores. That's really annoying. I can't sleep at night, but I just need to live with it. And it's like, no, you do not need to live with that because there are solutions for it. Yeah. So and that's the barrier that a company in that field, that's both actually in pharmaceutics and in medtech, needs to cross first before they can actually sell their solution. You need to get to an understanding of the healthcare system that this is an issue that we need to solve. This is a problem, and that's a big barrier for many medtech companies. We also see it in presentations today. You kind of need to explain first that there is a problem, and you need to go, oh yeah, that's a problem, and then comes the solution.
Yeah.
What I see is that when it comes to partnering, pharma companies are scared of being left behind by not embracing, if they don't embrace digital. So, and rather than, I mean, you get some of the bigger ones starting their own sort of digital tech team, but actually there's a huge amount of partnerships instead. They go out and they look for the solution to personalize their drugs, to improve adherence to the medicine. So there's, I think that's where we're going to continue to see more of them.
Yeah, it's getting late. Obviously, I don't know about you, but I thought it went very quickly. The reason we talk about this and compare to pharma is that from an investment point of view, is that a pharma is, you can always, the process, the path to the market is much more foreseeable. You have preclinical data, you have animal data, you have phase 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth. So you know that the risk goes down and the cost goes up. In medtech, it's different, and in health tech, it's so different because then it's such an immature, and medtech also to some point is much more immature than pharma is, and that's why if you're full of medtech companies here, the discussion here is super valuable to listen to because it's not another pharma company. It is different. So 3 minutes after, is that okay? Thank you so much. really insightful discussion, and I hope you find someone here to invest. Late stage, early stage. Hanna's company is nice.
Thank you, Carl.
Paindrainer was a good example also.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.